Mike Owens with Inside Fighting here, and it is always a pleasure to be joined by Randy, the Natural Couture. Randy, thank you for giving me some of your time as always. How are things for you today?
Doing good, Mike. Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.
The pleasure is all mine. How are your excitement levels as we get closer and closer to the PFL 2024 season
Well, I'm
finale?
not sure how excited I am about getting on that plane, but I'm definitely excited about the fights. The fights are going to be amazing. There's some great matchups, and excited to see PFL Mina and the finals, and all the undercard is PFL Mina, which was a really really smart thing to do. Um, Killing a couple birds with one stone there. I think the obviously the global finals are going to be amazing. Some amazing matchups. Dakota Ditcheva. Everybody's excited to see what goes on with her and Talia Santos. That's going to be an amazing matchup, and she's been on fire all through last season, winning PFL Europe, and now into the global season. You know, a lot of naysayers, a lot of people calling her out and poking her, and boy, has she stepped up and answered every question. Um, Brendan Loughnane back in there again, and that's going to be an amazing matchup as well. And I so enjoy his style. He just gets after it. He's not afraid to stand in the pocket and let him go. Amazingly technical fighter with a ton of resilience. You know, to win it 2 years ago in 2022, and all the adversity that he faced, the injuries and everything that he managed to find his way
Mm.
through and have some pretty stellar performances. And I think everybody's, Impa Kasanganay has taken the world by storm through the Challenger Series in 2023 all the way to the championship, and just firing on all cylinders. There's some amazing matchups on this fight card.
When you look at this card, is there one particular name you're looking at who could become the next face or the next PFL superstar?
Um, I think everybody's curious to see what happens with Musayev and
Mm.
and and Magomed. I mean
Mm.
that undefeated, and both those guys just. I mean, Musayev I think has one loss, but just looks remarkable. And talk about the clash of two guys with, you just don't see any flaws there. They don't make
Mm.
many mistakes, if any. Who's going to go out and really kind of impose their will and get the guy off balance, get the momentum rolling their way, and Usman find his first loss, or will Musayev, you know, fall
Mm.
short to the Prince? It's going to be a really really interesting matchup.
Dakota's rise has been so interesting. She's had so many naysayers, as you said, and there's a natural comparison there, not only with the gym she trains in, but also her gender with Kayla Harris, and what Kayla did fantastic things in the PFL. Just
Mm-hmm.
talk to me a little bit about Dakota's rise throughout this season, because she's hasn't put a foot wrong, completely dominant, but now gone into a huge test against Taylor Santos, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest test to Dakota's journey for sure.
Mm.
Uh, Bishop was a huge task, and she weathered that early storm. You know, literally found herself in the worst possible position that she could be in as a Muay Thai practitioner,
Mm.
with an amazing grappler on her back in that
Mm.
first round, and she survived it. Not only survived it, but came back, just storming back, and her shots to the body, that those knees, those long range weapons that she's displayed time and time again are just amazing. She steps in there. Nobody's ripping to the body like she is right now.
Mm.
I mean, she is tearing people up with those knees and those body shots. Um, it's very very impressive.
I have to bring you back to the last time that you call fights in this part of the world, because a guy who I know that you spend time with in your gym, but Francis Ngannou's fantastic comeback victory against Renan Ferreira. Just talk to me a little bit about that, and also from a personal standpoint, what that was like, because I know that you're obviously very close with Coach Eric and Francis to an extent.
Yeah, that was a very emotional night. When he won, and just the dedication to Kobe and everything. I don't think the team really got a lot of closure with everything that had happened. He immediately, left, wasn't in camp. He was in early in camp, but the team wanted to leave him alone, and not bring up all that stuff, because he had to kind of compartmentalize and put that stuff to the side and stay laser focused on the problems, literally the
Mm.
problems that Renan Ferreira poses.
Mm.
And so I think there was this huge emotional release when he was victorious that night. That double leg was gorgeous. I don't think anybody expected that. I absolutely did. I thought that was, if I'm facing this guy,
Mm.
the first thing I'm going to do is figure out how to close the distance and take him down, put him on his back, take as much steam out of him and smother him as much as possible. You don't want to trade with a guy at 6'8" with that kind of athletic ability and power. And so I think Francis' game plan was perfect. He executed that takedown perfectly, and he did not give him a chance to breathe or get a sniff in that fight, because a guy like that only needs one chance and he will end your night. So I was very happy for Francis. Got a little emotional in the booth, to be honest. It was tough to keep my shit straight, frankly. And it passed on to Dan and Sean. They're looking at me like, what the heck? And I'm like, look, we didn't really get a chance to close all this with Francis. And it was very emotional.
From a physical standpoint, look, it doesn't need to be said he has a tremendous physical abilities, but what he's gone through in his life, both pre and during his fighting career, has been nothing short of miraculous. From an actual mental standpoint, what do you feel like makes Francis Ngannou such a special individual?
I think that resilience, the adversity that he stepped up and faced to get a shot, to chase a dream, and that dream was originally to be a boxer. And thrown in jail twice, finally makes his way to Paris and France to start training and start heading down that pathway, and eventually finds his way to the States and ends up in an MMA cage instead of in a boxing ring. It's a Disney movie, literally waiting to unfold. It's remarkable what he's overcome. And then, to add a whole nother layer, to lose a child at 15 or 18 months old is just, no parent should ever have to go through that. I don't care what the circumstances are. It was just an amazing, horrible thing. And like everything else in his life, he's taking it in stride, put it in its proper place, put the proper frame around it, and just keeps marching forward and setting that example of resilience and that tenacious warrior spirit.
I know that he's now at the moment, or in his post-fight interview or press comments, he was kind of uncommitted on if this would be his last fight. I suppose PFL are in an interesting position about if you were to carry on, who would you match him up against with next? When you look at the landscape, is there a potential next opponent that if you say, if Francis does want to continue, this would be the right next fight?
Yeah, that name isn't popping into my head right now, and really the sky's the limit for Francis. Is he going to go back and try his hand back at boxing? I know Eric is pushing him to stay in MMA. I mean, that's dance with the one that brung you, right? That's what got him on the stage in the first place. But I think he's very excited about creating opportunity in Africa and launching PFL Africa next year as well in 2025. How that encompasses his time and all of that is the real question. And at the end of the day, those are questions only Francis can answer. We can all speculate, but what's in his heart? What does he feel like doing? Where does he want to go? What does he have left to accomplish? He's certainly made an amazing living and legacy for his family moving forward with the boxing matches and the MMA fights. So it's really up to him. And is that fire still burning in his belly? That warrior spirit still on fire and wanting to grind out camps and continue to knock names down and step in that cage. And I think he can do whatever he wants to do. He wants to settle into the business part of this and take that figurehead position in Africa and create infrastructure and opportunities for other athletes like him, so they don't have to go to jail and do all the things that he went through to get here. I think that's an amazing thing. And who in the hell negotiates their opponent's purse? I'm sure Renan Ferreira is thanking him for that right now.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Incredible.
I have to get your thoughts on another heavyweight champion, and that was obviously Jon Jones's title defense of his heavyweight title against Stipe Miocic on Saturday night. First and foremost, did you catch the fight? And if so, what did you make of Jon's second fight as a heavyweight?
Yeah, I saw the highlights. An amazing spinning back kick to the liver. The guy is so athletic. He really is. He's technically an amazing fighter. And he did exactly what he needed to do to get the job done against me, Stipe. And I'm a big fan of Stipe. I think he's exactly the epitome of what this sport stands for and the character and everything. So to see Stipe go out that way and retire, I think hats off to him. He's done an amazing job of representing the sport. And good for Jon. Jon did a great job, did exactly what he needed to do against a very, very tough opponent. And I thought Stipe would force him to wrestle more. So, that's how I saw it. I thought it was a tall order for Stipe regardless, but both guys had been out for, 2 years or more. So ring rust is negotiable, whether, both guys are going to be dealing with it, right? So it was really who's going to go out and impose their will, and Jon did just that.
There's been a lot of talk and a lot of interest from fans about seeing the fight against interim champion Tom Aspinall, and John has seemed reluctant to really comment about it, if not certainly reluctant to actually, you know, say with confidence that he wants to take that fight next. Have you been surprised with John's behaviour and his kind of lack of commitment to the fight against Tom Aspinall?
It calls into question where his heart's at. If he really has that motivation to continue to establish himself as a bona fide heavyweight and basically clean out the division and put an end to any of the naysaying and what's going on with John. I mean, John's the only one who can answer these questions. Step up, clean out the division, take on Aspinall, put an exclamation point on it, and let's see how the chips fall. I think that would be an amazing fight. I think Aspinall deserves that fight, the shot at that. He's earned it. He stepped up when other guys didn't want to step up. He should be rewarded for what he's done and where he's at in his journey on this pathway.
I think the odds came out, the future odds, and they had Tom as about a -150 favourite. John is around about a +30 underdog. Would you agree with that? Who would you favour going into that matchup?
I think experience-wise, you've got to give the nod to John. I mean, he's been doing this for a lot longer. I think he's slowly establishing himself as a bona fide heavyweight, and we certainly know Tom is a bona fide heavyweight. I think what he just did against Stipe certainly tells me that he's in no way overmatched or outsized, and technically and tactically can deal with anybody in the cage. So I don't think that's an issue. But it makes you wonder why dodge a guy? Why not just step up and fight whoever they want you to fight? I mean, you're that guy. You're the GOAT, as everybody and there should be no qualms about it. So that's how I feel. I think Tom's done everything right and deserves that shot. And let's answer the question. The only way we answer the question is if they get in the cage.
I suppose that's the question I wanted to ask you, as somebody who's held the UFC heavyweight title. John has been very adamant that if he does want to fight next, it would be the Alex Pereira fight that would be his preferred final fight. Do you feel like a champion should get say in who they fight, or do you feel like that should be up to the organisation, whether that's the UFC or another organisation, PFL, One Championship, on and on, who should decide who challenges the champion?
I think both entities should have a say in the matter. You walk a fine line there. It was something I rarely balked at who they wanted me to fight. So I think there's a part of it as a warrior. You just it certainly has to somehow in your heart make sense. This is the guy I should be fighting. This is the guy that's going to continue to move me down the line and move me up the rankings or move me, wherever I need to go. That's why I chased the Fedor fight for as long as I did. I mean, that's the guy I wanted to fight. So I think most of the guys have the same mentality. And I think John, Heyman, and Han, and not just being willing to step in there with whoever they want him to fight. I think there's, in some ways, you got to be a little smart about it, because sometimes the company doesn't always have your best interest at heart. Let's be honest. But at the end of the day, you're a warrior. This is what you do. This is how you make a living. And if you don't step up in that cage, you don't get paid. You don't make your money. So I think you take on whoever they want you to take, but you have a say in that matter. Say, hey, I really want to fight this guy. This guy's a more technical challenge for me than that guy. I feel like John's going the other way. He sees Pereira, somebody who's moving up from a lower weight class, just like he has. That might be a better style matchup for him than a guy like Aspinall. Aspinall's dangerous. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic, he hits hard. Those are all dangerous things in the heavyweight division. So therein is the dilemma that John creates when he balks a little bit about, I want to fight this guy, not that guy.
You mentioned your fight there with Fedor, and there's completely different reasons for why that fight never happened to this current situation. But I almost wonder if there's a worry that the history could repeat itself, and the fight that everybody wants to see doesn't eventually end up happening because of extenuating circumstances. Do you think about that? Is there a similarity there?
I mean, there's an argument there that maybe this fight doesn't happen because the organization can't seem to make it happen, or because John, doesn't feel that strongly about fighting Aspinall when he does about Pereira. At the end of the day, they're trying to make money and sell pay-per-views, and anytime John's walking up in that cage, that's going to be a good night for the company. So I'm sure they're going to push him in the direction they want him to go, that they think is going to sell the most pay-per-views, and that's Tom, in my opinion. At least right now, give Pereira some time to acclimate and show that that he's a heavyweight and can compete with those guys at that size and all of that. And then maybe the Jon fight makes more sense. Jon gets one more to establish, yeah, I'm here and I'm here to stay. You want it? Come on. I mean, that's the attitude. Those crossover fights are tough because these organizations are very, very exclusive. These contracts are very, very exclusive. There's no transparency in our sport. That's the big issue with our sport. That's why the Fedor fight never happened. They wanted a co-promotion and one did. UFC's like, no, why would we put you over? We're not going to do a co-promotion with you. If you want, we're happy to sign Fedor and pay him this amount of money to fight this guy, but we're not going to do a co-promotion. That was where that fight came unhinged.
Yeah.
So, what it would have been an amazing Super Bowl fights, Pride champ versus the UFC champ. And I think that, what PFL just did with the champs versus champs last year in Bellator is an indication of what the fans want to see. And I'm happy that PFL was able to pull that off and do that. I think we need to see more of that and create this transparency and eliminate the restrictive nature and the anti-competitive nature of our sport right now. Should be able to have these co-promotion bouts against that champ versus that champ. That's the stuff the fans want to see.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Andy. And I think that's the best place for us to end. So thank you as always for your time. Look forward to seeing you back in the commentary booth at PFL finals next Saturday. Enjoy next Friday, excuse me. Enjoy the flight, and thank you as always for the time.
Thanks, Mike. Be well.